Hello, and welcome back to ASD A New Perspective, a podcast show where we help you understand what is going on in the mind of your child. And we do encourage you that growth for your child is possible. In our last show, Dr. Gusting shared with us the hope there is for our children diagnosed with ASD. This week, he shares his hope for parents, encouraging them that they can enjoy a growth-filled relationship with their children. Dr. Gusting continues.
They have the ability for growth promotion, but as a first step, what we have to help them do is to create experiences that allow that child to meet them halfway. You can't be a guide unless you have a child who is growth-seeking, who is feeling some sense of agency already, who is feeling that desire for relatedness. If those are in place, those motivations, those desires, then that child is going to be an active co-participant in this growth process. And you could be the best growth promoting parent in the world, and if you don't have that force, that energy there to guide, right? Mm-hmm. Then you can't succeed. And so the first step, right, is how do we create experiences for this particular child, given their vulnerabilities, their history, to not only undo some of the damage or some of the negative experiences, but also, of course, provide the positive experiences that once we provide sufficient positive experiences, we reach a threshold, and those innate motivations will start to emerge, especially the growth seeking. Once we develop enough sense of agency, enough sense of desire for relatedness, and enough sense of safety in that relationship, and tie in those increases in agency to this relationship, that's the source of this, then the growth-seeking drive we see in every child with ASD we've worked with, despite what they're called high functional, it emerges, and then they become real partners in this relationship. And that's unfortunately something that most parents of ASD kids never get to see and start to believe is not possible, but it is. And we see it, and it's dramatic. And then they're on the road to working together, which makes an enormous difference. They remove themselves. They lose the desire for relatedness, or that really never develops fully because of those early vulnerabilities. And you see, and they don't develop the experiential memories of increased agency, the ability to influence themselves and others in the world, being a result of that relationship, because they're not able to make sense of things. They're not able to use the enormous strengths that their parents have at their disposal. They're not able to form that mutual, they're not able to provide feedback for parents, the type of dynamic, ongoing feedback that as a guide, you need to know to keep adjusting what you're doing, to keep things sort of one step ahead of that child's current development. You can't do that if you're not getting any ongoing feedback. And if the child's not getting ongoing feedback, there has to be this early system of communication, of feedback that occurs on an emotional basis. It's not happening with these kids. These kids are not developing that, are not providing that for their parents. Even though they have many different starting vulnerabilities, neural vulnerabilities, what unites them, even as infants, if you watch them in the second year of life, what will unite them, and maybe even earlier, is that the sum of their impairments is such that it prevents them from becoming active participants in a guiding relationship, them from being able to benefit from what their parents have to offer them. And that's the tragedy. So the parents feel helpless, the child starts to disengage, which makes parents feeling more desperate. Things escalate at that point and become more and more abnormal. And that's what the research shows us. I mean, it's not my theory. That's been documented by our researchers. And what's exciting about that is that we can address that. We can provide experiences, we can tailor experiences that are positive, that are now creating for that child the sense of self as being able to grow, being able to develop, being able to expand, being able to engage with challenge through the support of their parents, right, through that vehicle. And so they become extremely motivated, engaged, active participants in a guiding relationship. And in fact, many of our successful kids with ASD and gone through RDI are much better consumers, if you will, participants of the guiding relationship than our quote unquote typically developing population, because they really appreciate it. I guess for the parents as well, but they really use it extremely well. And it's exciting when we see that. And of course, that's a lifelong thing. And they're developing more self-guiding as well. They're not completely dependent on being with that parent, right, every minute. And that's very, very important, is they're internalizing that process in their own mind. They're learning how to guide themselves. They're learning how to perceive differently, how to conduct their own internal dialogue, where they consider multiple things in the world, where they explore ideas internally, right? Prepare themselves and reflect and do all those things that in the beginning they had to depend on the external interactions to do. It's very, very, very exciting. And parents who stick with this a while, stick with RDI, never go back to what they were doing before. They can.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gutstein. And thank you for joining us for ASD, A New Perspective, the podcast where we help you understand what is going on in the mind of your child. And join us in the continued journey as we encourage you that growth is possible. I'm your host, Kat Lee. See you next time.